Hello friends, let's begin with the lecture series which will focus on symptomatology. In this video lecture, we will learn about cough, its approach and management. We will start with the basic physiology. Then we will have a look on what is impaired cough and what are its causes. Then we will see various types of cough, characteristics of sputum. Then we'll move on to approach to a patient presenting with cough. What are the various medications which can be prescribed? And finally, treatment according to the cause. As other reflexes, the cough reflex has stimulus, afferent, center, efferent, and effectors. The stimulus for cough reflex is chemical stimulus like leukotrienes, histamine, and mechanical stimulus like foreign body, dust, or cancer. This stimuli will stimulate the receptors. The receptors are present in respiratory tracts, pleura, diaphragm, and small amount of receptors are also present in pericardium, esophagus, stomach, ear. In ear, it is a branch of vagus nerve which is known as Arnold's nerve. And the stimulation of cough by ear stimulation is known as Arnold's reflex. Then coming to the afferent is by vagus nerve through internal laryngeal branch of superior laryngeal nerve, which is a branch of vagus nerve. The center is present in medulla oblongata part of brain in the nucleus known as nucleus tractus solitarius. The efferent is by phrenic nerve, intercostal nerve, and recurrent laryngeal branch of vagus nerve. The efferent will act on the effectors, which are respiratory muscles, laryngeal muscles, and bronchial smooth muscles. Now, the cough reflex has three phases. The first one is inspiratory phase, second is compression phase, and third is expiratory phase. In inspiratory phase, we take a deep breath in. There will be stretching of expiratory muscles and there is increased pressure generation in our lungs. In compression phase, there is closure of glottis, the respiratory muscles contract, there is narrowing of respiratory tract, and the further increase in pressure is there in respiratory tract. In the third and final phase, which is expiratory phase, the glottis opens and air is pushed out with a very high velocity, which even expels the sputum or any foreign body. Now, when our cough reflex is impaired or ineffective, it can compromise the ability to clear lower respiratory tract infection, which can predispose to more serious infections and their sequelae. What are the various causes of this impaired cough? It can be caused due to decreased respiratory muscle strength. It can be due to chest wall or abdominal pain, chest wall deformity like severe kyphoscoliosis, impaired glottic closure or tracheostomy, tracheobronchomalacia. In tracheobronchomalacia, during the expiration phase, the trachea collapse and there is ineffective cough, abnormal airway secretions, or central respiratory depression like in cases of anesthesia, sedation, or coma. Now let's see what are the various types of cough. Cough is broadly divided into wet cough, which is productive cough, and dry cough, which is non-productive cough. In wet cough, there is mucus production and sputum expulsion. On the other hand, dry cough has little or no mucus production. Wet cough is also known as useful cough as it will expectorate and clear the lower respiratory tract. The dry cough is useless cough and is often irritable. Wet cough is caused by pneumonias, bronchiectasis, lung abscess. On the other hand, dry cough is due to interstitial lung disease, pleuritis, mediastinitis, tropical pulmonary eosinophilia. Wet cough needs to be facilitated, therefore expectorants are the drug used for these, and dry cough needs to be suppressed, therefore antitussives are used for these. Now the main types of cough we have discussed are wet cough and dry cough. Some other types of coughs are brassy cough. It is a metallic sound cough which is due to the compression of airway, example by a tumor or lymph node. Bovine cough. In bovine cough, there is loss of explosive nature of cough due to recurrent laryngeal nerve palsy. This can be due to any tumor which leads to vocal cord abduction. Whooping cough is a continuous cough followed by deep inspiration, usually found in cases of pertussis caused by Bordetella pertussis. Rarely it can also be seen in bronchial asthma or foreign body. I will demonstrate whooping cough. The nocturnal cough, which is the cough which increases in night time, can be seen in tropical pulmonary eosinophilia caused by Vauquereria bancrofti. It is also caused by paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea caused by cardiovascular disease. Morning cough is usually found in bronchial asthma. Exercise or exertion induced cough is seen in cough variant asthma, also found in heart failure. Suppressed cough is seen in cases of Mycobacterium avium intracellulare, which is seen in HIV patients with CD4 count less than 50. Now coming to sputum characteristics and what are the various causes. Serous or watery sputum is seen in cases of viral infections. Mucoid or thick white sputum is seen in COPD like chronic bronchitis. Green colored sputum is seen in Pseudomonas infection, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is due to pigment pyocyanin. Green colored sputum can also be seen in bronchial asthma, which is due to eosinophils. Green color is due to eosinophils. Rusty colored sputum is seen in Streptococcus pneumoniae, which leads to pneumonia, and there is RBC degradation, which gives it a rusty color. Red currant jelly sputum is seen in cases of Klebsiella. Black colored sputum is seen in coal workers pneumoconiosis. Anchovy sauce or chocolate brown sputum is seen in if a liver abscess ruptures and goes above the diaphragm, it can cause anchovy sauce or chocolate colored sputum. This is ruptured liver abscess. Pink frothy sputum can be seen in pulmonary edema, which can be cardiogenic or non-cardiogenic. Foul smelling sputum is usually caused by anaerobic infections. It can be seen in lung abscess or aspiration pneumonitis. Now there is something known as bronchuria. Bronchuria means if the sputum production is more than 100 ml per day. It is known as bronchuria. It is seen in lung abscess, bronchiectasis, and most importantly, alveolar cell carcinoma of lung. So, if a patients with bronchuria come to you, you should be very suspicious about these cases. Now coming to the various medications used for cough. These can be of three classes: pharyngeal demulcents, expectorants or mucokinetics, and antitussives, which are cough center suppressants. Coming on to pharyngeal demulcents. Pharyngeal demulcents soothe the throat, and reduce the afferent impulses which are coming from inflamed or irritated pharyngeal mucosa. Thus, these are give relief in upper respiratory tract infection or any other cause which causes inflammation of throat or upper respiratory tract. It is used for upper respiratory tract infection. This include lozenges, cough drops, linctuses containing syrup, glycerin, licorice. Second are the expectorants. Expectorants or mucokinetics are the drugs which increase either the bronchial secretion or reduce its viscosity, therefore facilitates the removal of sputum by coughing. This has either bronchial secretion enhancers and others are mucolytics. Bronchial secretion enhancers are sodium or potassium citrate, potassium iodide, guaifenesin, balsam tolu, Vasaka, ammonium chloride. The sodium potassium salts increase the secretion by their ionic nature. Potassium iodide is not used now since it increases the iodide content of the body. Guaifenesin, tolu and Vasaka are the plant products which also increase the bronchial secretion. On the other hand, mucolytics are the drugs which decrease the viscosity of the sputum and facilitates its clearing. It has bromhexine, ambroxol, acetylcysteine and derivative of acetylcysteine known as carbocysteine. Coming on to antitussives, which are cough suppressants. These are either opioids, non-opioids, antihistaminics, peripheral acting or adjuvant. Opioids include codeine, ethylmorphine and falcodeine. These are morphine derivatives and related to morphine. Non-opioids are noscapine, dextromethorphan, clofenidiol. Antihistaminics are chlorpheniramine, promethazine, diphenhydramine. Peripheral acting are prenoxidazine. This prenoxidazine, in contrast to other antitussives, acts peripherally. It desensitizes the pulmonary stretch receptors and therefore reduces the tussal impulses which are originating from the lungs. In adjuvant, we have bronchodilators like salbutamol and terbutaline. Out of all these, we will discuss bromhexine, acetylcysteine, codeine and dextromethorphan in details. Coming to bromhexine, it is an alkaloid vesicin which is obtained from Aethertoda vesica plant. It is a potent mucolytic and mucokinetic drug. It depolymerizes the mucopolysaccharides of a tenacious sputum. Side effects are rhinorrhea, lacrimation. Dose is tablet bromhexine 8 mg TDS. Acetylcysteine opens the disulfide bonds in the mucoproteins. It is administered directly into the respiratory tract and is available in ampoules which has to be given either through tracheostomy or has to be nebulized. The oral form is N-acetylcysteine which is available in effervescent tablets, or it is also available in injectable forms which can be given IV. Adult dose of N-acetylcysteine is 600 mg BD or TDS. These both are mucolytics and are used very often in clinics. Coming to antitussives, we will discuss codeine and dextromethorphan. Codeine is an opium alkaloid which is more selective for cough center as compared to morphine. It suppresses cough for about 6 hours. The abuse liability of codeine is low, but it is present, obviously. It can cause constipation and at higher doses causes respiratory depression, drowsiness. Therefore, it is strictly contraindicated in asthmatics, diseases with diminished respiratory reserve and during driving. Dose is 10 to 30 mg. Talking about dextromethorphan, it is synthetic central NMDA receptor antagonist. NMDA stands for N-methyl D-aspartate. The D isomer of dextromethorphan has antitussive action, while L isomer is analgesic. It is non-addicting and non-constipating, therefore preferred drug. The dose is 10 to 15 milligram. Now let's see approach to a patient of cough. When a patient presents with cough to us, we'll ask first question, for how much time you are experiencing cough. If it is less than 3 weeks, it is acute. If it is 3 to 8 weeks, it is subacute, and more than 8 weeks marks the definition of chronic cough. First, coming on to acute cough. Acute cough can be caused by either foreign body or bacterial or viral respiratory tract infection, which can be upper or lower respiratory tract infection. In case of foreign body, we do foreign body removal. For bacterial and viral respiratory tract infection, we give supportive antibiotics and symptomatic treatment. If in case of acute infection, the sputum production is present or the cough is productive or wet cough, we go for sputum culture sensitivity to know the appropriate antibiotics. Coming to subacute cough, it is usually due to pertussis, also known as whooping cough, and post-viral bronchial hyperreactivity. The viral cough is usually acute, but after the treatment of viral illness, the fever subsides, myalgia subsides, other symptoms subside, but sometimes the cough is present till 3 to 8 weeks. This is due to bronchial hyperreactivity to the irritants. Now, what if a patient presents to us with a cough of more than 8 weeks duration? It is known as chronic cough. We will first of all advise chest X-ray PO view. Chest X-ray PO view, if found abnormal, can be due to tuberculosis, COPD, interstitial lung disease, carcinoma lung, or bronchiectasis. We treat the patient accordingly. But what if the chest X-ray comes to be normal? In more than 90% cases, the chest X-ray normal in a patient of chronic cough can be due to bronchial asthma. We treat it accordingly and diagnose it with the help of history and physical examination like wheezing, dyspnea. It can be due to drug-induced cough like ACE inhibitor. It can be due to postnasal drip or GERD. Now talking about ACE inhibitor-induced cough, it is seen in 5 to 30% patients taking ACE inhibitors. It is due to accumulation of bradykinin. Bradykinin, which is metabolized by ACE, it accumulates in the body and sensitizes the sensory nerve endings. For treatment, we withdraw the ACE inhibitor for 1 month and replace it with sartans. If after 1 month cough is absent, it is definitely ACE inhibitor induced cough. If it is still present, then there is some other etiology. For postnasal drip, we take ENT opinion and complete ENT checkup is required. For GERD, we treat with antihistaminics and proton pump inhibitors. If there is no resolution of cough after this symptomatic management, we go for CT chest. CT chest is required because there are some tumors, early interstitial lung disease, early bronchiectasis, and atypical mycobacterial infection, which can be missed by a simple chest X-ray. So these diseases can be identified by a CT chest. If CT chest also comes normal, then we have to reassure the patient that you have no abnormality and it will subside by time. Now, if the patient comes with chronic cough with a normal chest X-ray, in more than 90% cases, it is due to these diseases. But sometimes there is a cough hypersensitivity syndrome. It is similar to chronic fatigue syndrome, and there are some psychosomatic abnormalities which leads to cough. It is treated by gabapentin or pregabalin. So there are some psychosomatic disturbances. This is known as cough hypersensitivity syndrome. Now coming back to approach of cough, cough can be acute, subacute, chronic, less than 3 weeks, acute, 3 to 8 weeks, subacute, more than 8 weeks, chronic. If it is acute, it can be due to foreign body or bacterial or viral respiratory tract infection. Subacute cough can be due to pertussis, post-viral bronchial hyperreactivity. Chronic cough, we go for X-ray. X-ray abnormality can be found in TB, COPD, ILD, cancer lung, bronchiectasis. If the chest X-ray is normal in more than 90% cases, it is due to bronchial asthma, drug-induced like ACE inhibitor, post-nasal drip or GERD. For GERD, to establish, we have to go for 24-hour endoscopic pH monitoring and its diurnal variation with cough. If we treat the patients accordingly and there is no resolution, we go for CT chest, which can identify tumors, early ILD, early bronchiectasis, and atypical mycobacterial infection. If CT comes to be normal, we reassure the patient. In some cases, there can be cough hypersensitivity syndrome, which is treated by gabapentin and pregabalin. Now let's come to the final part of the presentation, that is treatment, which is according to the etiology. If the patient with cough has upper or lower respiratory tract infection, we will give him appropriate antibiotics. If the patient is a smoker, has chronic bronchitis or bronchiectasis, we will advise him to cessate smoking. Avoid pollutants and other supportive treatment like steam inhalation and postural drainage. Pulmonary tuberculosis, we will give anti-tubercular therapy. Asthmatic cough can be treated by inhaled beta-2 agonist, inhaled corticosteroids, and inhaled ipratropium or tiotropium. Cough in pulmonary eosinophilia. Pulmonary eosinophilia is caused by Wuchereria bancrofti. It is treated by anti-parasitic drug like DEC and inhaled corticosteroids. Post-nasal drip due to sinusitis or allergic perennial rhinitis. First ENT checkup is done. Afterwards, sinusitis is treated by appropriate antibiotics, and allergic or perennial rhinitis is treated by avoidance of precipitating factors, corticosteroids, or H1 antihistaminics. Gastroesophageal reflux is caused by antihistaminics, H2 antihistaminics, proton pump inhibitors. It is important to note that allergic and perennial rhinitis is treated by H1 antihistaminics. On the other hand, the GERD is treated by H2 antihistaminic. ACE inhibitor associated cough can be treated if we replace it with ARBs like telmisartan. Post-viral cough require no treatment. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. Please support my channel. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel.